We have prepared a video about the celebration of the 15 years of IX.br. So let's play it. There's also some words of John Sauter from Links about this celebration and about the partnership we have established in the past years. So please play the video. The first video is about the conversation about celebration of 15 years, and then John Sauter.
A internet é formada por milhares de organizações e empresas diferentes e independentes. Para que funcione em perfeita harmonia, elas precisam se interligar e colaborar. Há locais com infraestrutura que facilita essa interligação e colaboração de muitas formas. Podemos considerar esses locais como pontos neutros, em que diversas organizações, mesmo concorrentes, estão juntas para interligar sua tecnologia e trocar tráfego, trocar pacotes de dados e internet entre si. Por isso, essas infraestruturas são chamadas de pontos de troca de tráfego, ou Internet Exchange Points em inglês, ou simplesmente PTTs, IX, IXPs ou IX. Os Internet Exchanges são formados por data centers com equipamentos especiais que permitem a interligação simultânea de dezenas ou centenas de organizações. Empresas que fornecem acesso à internet estão interligadas com empresas de streaming de vídeo, com sites de busca, redes sociais, bancos, universidades, órgãos do governo, entre tantas outras. Essa união em um só local de tantas redes com serviços complementares traz diversos benefícios, inclusive a você que está assistindo este vídeo. A internet fica mais veloz, eficiente, resistente a falhas e com custo mais baixo. Sem os Internet Exchanges, as informações, os bits que trafegam pela internet teriam que percorrer caminhos bem mais longos. Isso faria a internet ser lenta, mais suscetível a falhas e cara. Hoje, quem cria e opera aqui no Brasil Internet Exchanges neutros, abertos a todos, confiáveis, sem finalidade de lucro, com profissionalismo, excelência técnica e seriedade, somos nós, do NIC.br. O NIC.br é uma entidade privada e sem fins de lucro. Além de sermos responsáveis pelo registro dos domínios .br, investimos em diversas ações para o desenvolvimento da internet no Brasil. A criação e operação dos PTTs é uma delas. O NIC.br cria e opera PTTs com o único objetivo de tornar a internet melhor para que possa ser acessada por todos os brasileiros. O nome dado a essa iniciativa é IX.br. Ela é responsável por alguns dos maiores Internet Exchanges do mundo e em 2019 completa 15 anos. A operação do IX.br foi iniciada em julho de 2004, após a aprovação do Comitê Gestor da Internet no Brasil, com o nome PTT Metro, iniciativa que uniu todos os PTTs da região metropolitana de São Paulo, o primeiro de 1998 operado pela FAPESP e outros que surgiram em seguida, operados por entidades acadêmicas e privadas. Desde a união dessas iniciativas, o IX.br coleciona conquistas importantes para a internet no país. Em 2019, já operamos mais de 30 PTTs distribuídos nas 5 regiões do país. Alguns são menores, interligando apenas redes locais. Outros são enormes, atraindo redes que operam em diferentes regiões do país e mesmo fora dele. O PTT de São Paulo, por exemplo, é o maior do mundo em número de redes interligadas e o terceiro maior considerando o tráfego de dados. O IX.br mantém boa parte do tráfego da internet do Brasil dentro do próprio país. Os nossos PTTs também viabilizam o estabelecimento e o crescimento de provedores regionais, contribuindo para um ambiente mais competitivo e possibilitando que cada vez mais brasileiros tenham acesso à internet. O NIC.br conta com a colaboração de muitos para criar e operar os PTTs, os quais beneficiam a todos no Brasil. Universidades, redes acadêmicas, empresas e órgãos públicos, data centers privados, provedores de internet e empresas de telecomunicações cedem parte de suas infraestruturas e nos ajudam de diversas formas a tornar o IX.br uma realidade. Há 15 anos, a equipe do IX.br se dedica a trazer cada vez mais e mais benefícios para a internet no Brasil e para todos os brasileiros. Acesse IX.br e acompanhe essa iniciativa.
I'd like to start by thanking Milton for the opportunity to wish you very happy 15th anniversary. I'm sorry I can't be here in person to do this. I would have loved to have come to Brazil again, but unfortunately I'm really busy at the moment. I'm coming to the end of my 18 and a half years at Lynx. I'm retiring at the end of this year, and as you can imagine, there's still an awful lot to do to get to that point. I'm very pleased to say that there's been fantastic cooperation between IX.br and Lynx over the years. I think that's how it should be. There's always things that we can learn from each other, and long may that continue. I also think that IX.br plays a very important role in the world scene. It's important that people see that it's possible to build a very successful internet exchange, even in a country that's as huge and as diverse as Brazil. So I'd like to conclude by once again wishing you a very, very happy 15th anniversary, and I hope you have a great deal of success in the future.
I would like to show you a few slides that present the timeline of internet implementation in Brazil. We are celebrating 30 years of .br and 15 years of IX.br. So let us take this experience, the knowledge of those who have been through this experience. That's an opportunity for you to learn more about the history of what went on in internet development in Brazil along these years. This timeline starts back in 1988. So that's when we started connecting with other countries. That was a very interesting starting point. So we wanted to have links with other countries. People did not believe that back then, so it was a time when we convinced them. This was only possible because of the understanding that this could allow the traffic of third parties to be carried along these networks. That was back in 1988. LNCC, that was the first connection between LNCC and University of Maryland. Also, there was a link of 4,800 that connected FAPESP and Fermilab. In 1989, we had the first .br domain. I think that maybe Demi can tell us more about that. He experienced that. That's a great opportunity for Demi to share with us how we started the first BR domains, how it came about, and then we will follow from there. Well, first I'd like to say it's very good to be here. I'd like to thank you all for coming. The hardcore, the Brazilian network in the Brazilian internet. Of course, these are the connections, and it took us a while until this took place. We needed to discuss that with SAE, back then with Embratel and different organizations. In '87, there was a very important meeting at the University of São Paulo when groups met, because the people of FAPESP did not know the people in LNCC were working on that. There was just a starting point for RP that was just being started. Michael Stanton was there, Alexander Grossgood. So that was this meeting in '87 showed that everyone wanted to move in this direction. They had been running independent initiatives so far, and the ones by FAPESP and by LNCC wanted to connect through BitNet, which was easy to connect, cheap, and very natural for those who had IBM machines. We didn't have those, we had digital. it seemed like a cheaper and simpler alternative. Back then, it was very difficult getting an international line. People at telecom, it was owned by the government back then, and there was all the policies that you needed to abide by, and people did not know why two institutions interconnect. Said, are you a branch of the Fermi Lab? No. Is Fermi a branch of your business? No, no, none of that. So why do we want to connect? We want to exchange data. Oh, but this should be regulated. What kind of data are you sending? Are those critical national data? Will they learn things they shouldn't? No, it's just data from the university. Oh, more people are going to use that? No, it should be a one-to-one line. You can have to exchange data with Fermi Lab, and other institutions should have their individual lines. It was complicated explaining to them what that was. The difference between our connection and LNCC's connection that also determined the destiny of things is that it was a bitnet point that became BR and NCC later. And our connection was a 5 points. When we asked for 5 points, the bitnet team said, well, you were making a small network, a small national network. They believed it could be SPAN São Paulo Academic Network, but there was a similar acronym from NASA, so we changed that to UNSP. That was the Academic Network of São Paulo. And we started with a network while LNCC just had 1 point. Since we were a network, we got the right and the obligation of generating this and managing the internal routing. So we had a routing table that was created every month and distributed to BitNet. There was something fun and maybe tragic. When Minas Gerais state connected to the network, back then people did not know which to choose, LNCC or maybe FAPES, depends on who had friends, where you have friends. And usually people from Minas Gerais, they're very prudent. They connected to both of them. And in the table, there was a loop. Nobody told them about it. And for 1 week, we had this very weird traffic because in the Brazilian part of BitNet, a loop was created, not expected. And the messages were kind of looping around the region. That was before 1988. And in 1988, lines became online. LNCC network grew, but it was just in BitNet. It was born in BitNet and it died in BitNet. Ours was HEPNet because the communication was based on digital and then became internet later. .br. What about .br? Okay. When we were starting with this, we created a system because BitNet was a linear machine list. It was a machine list. We decided to call everything BR something. BR US, BR FAPES, BR, and followed by a name. So everyone is together. Most people use BR in the beginning of the names. And the next machines that joined later, you started using the acronym UCP. They also used a nomenclature system that was hierarchical, like internet is, not linear. And so, well, maybe you should have a surname to use it. And Gomidi started negotiation with Postel and found out that BR was available. .br was available. Since we seem to know a little bit about the structure in our country, how universities connected to the network, there was no problem in giving the .br, and the Dixit of BR was from FAPES, but then mix it with the second machine to join. This was not an agreement between countries or MRSs or organizations. It was just an agreement between network operators, and one domain was pointed at one machine of FAPESP, and it became the authoritative domain of .br. We had .br even before we had internet. That was in April 18, 1989. We're celebrating 30 years of .br domain. And when we were able to run software, install a software that run the internet, we didn't have a Cisco router back then. It was much more difficult. It was installed in January 1991. In the end of January, we started exchanging packages. There is a book you'll hear about later on that has been recently written, and that recovered some emails, including Gomida's email, saying that the internet routing was complete. I think it dates back from February 6, 1991. There are so many things to tell. I think now Professor Glaser will tell you about the Internet Steering Committee and how it was created CGI. That happened in 1995.
Good afternoon, everyone. The Brazilian government early on did not know that the internet was working somewhere in the country. So they started looking around, and some key people that were working with the government, they thought that since the very beginning, the internet would have a multi-sectorial governance, and that is the root of the success that we have. We have a very special type of governance here because of that. In 1995, there was a lot of conflict with Telebras, the federal agency. They didn't want to give away the lion's share of the networks. There was an initial negotiation that saying that for research, for academia, costs would be reduced. And when I arrived at FAPESP in '96, Demi here had just left FAPESP. He went to work outside. And then we discovered that there was a problem with the expenses, with all the links, because Telebras had not yet fully understood how things worked. So at the time, the Minister of Communications, Mr. Mota, with a certain view of the future, a vision of the future, before the new law came about for telecommunications, he tried to propose a directive to categorize the internet as an added value service. And as he created the steering committee, he already created this initial power and also this initial responsibility of controlling the governance of internet in Brazil. This happened in May 1996, just before the new general law of telecommunications, which only came about in '97. So it was then decided that the steering committee would be responsible for everything and anything connected to the internet and IP. And the infrastructure would, of course, fall under the regulating agency and the telecoms after the privatization processes. And the first thing steering committee was created with 9 members, already accepting people from outside of the government. So 5 from the civil society and 4 from the government, but all of them appointed from previously presented lists. They were not elected like today. Today the society elects them. It was different back then, but it was a big change, a big novelty at the time. I remember that in the first meeting I took part in, as I arrived at FAPESP, there were doubts as to whether FAPESP should continue or should leave. So we started this struggle to create a legal entity not linked or connected to a public agency. So the steering committee is a supervising agency, a coordinating agency for the internet in Brazil. And it was agreed upon through internal resolution that for a certain time, FAPESP would remain as the operating entity of the internet, as if you will. We called it operating unit at the time. There was no legal entity established at the time. So this was the solution we found at the time. The steering committee would decide on the criteria, on the policies to be followed, the programs to be implemented. There were no resources at the time. Until 1997, it was all free of charge. Only by the end of 97, early 98, we started charging. And then with the resources trickling in, we were able to have our own projects. And just to take a step forward, it was only in 2005, 2006 that NIC.br was created as a legal entity, totally autonomous, totally unconnected with FAPESP. So it all took a long time to happen. It was very gradual, but it was made through strong, resolute steps. And a lot of experience was gained with that. I'll stop here and I'll go back later with the rest of the story. So this is where we see the start of the IXPs. In the first meetings of the steering committees, we were already talking about IXPs. That was in 1995. And we were talking about a peer already. Nobody had heard about a peer at the time because we called it point of network interconnection at the time. And somebody at Anatel at the time said, no, you cannot use that term because that's already used by telecoms. And if you ask somebody from telecoms if somebody uses that term, peer, nobody does. In any event, we left that term aside and we started using PTT, or Internet Exchange Point. So the first one we had was the one at FAPESP, UNESP universities, and it started with negotiations with the academia, universities, and also with Embratel, the Brazilian telecom agency, the federal agency, which was the only agency dealing with internet matters. But Anatel was present in all negotiations, but when it came the time to install the first IX, if you look at this diagram, Embratel was not present when it came the time to install the first IXP. And they only came back many years later, the federal agency. So we started, as I said, with the University of São Paulo, FAPESP, and the Global One. Those were the only players at the time. That's when the FAPESP IXP started. And the equipment, NetBuilder, Core Builder, they were donated by 3Com. So we still owe a word of thank you to them. The country manager of 3Com in Brazil donated the equipment, the Core Builder and 20 NetBuilders, so that we could use routers to get connected. KDD used it, and Global One also used their own resources. At the time, to get connected, it's not like today, right? We only had E1 links and that type of thing. E1, E3, 2 megs, 34 megs. So we needed to convert all those speeds to Ethernet. So we created this Internet Exchange Point, the first one. There is a picture of those who were present at FAPESP at the time. I look very young in that picture, as you will notice. As you can also see, Professor Glaser, Fred, we're all there in that picture, and also Ricardo Patara, who's also here with us. And it's interesting to notice that throughout this period, it's worth mentioning that the CDN that we talk about so much today as a new thing, back in 1999, we already have the Acaima CDN in Brazil. We had low connectivity, And the way to address that was by using CDN. So we had several Akaima servers at FAPESP to be able to serve the academic community, to be able to relieve international links. Uh, you have no idea what saturation meant at that time. It was saturated throughout the day. Throughout, maybe at 5 in the morning it was okay, but after that and before that it was very saturated. After the activation of the Americas 2 undersea cable, FAPESP was the second client of Embratel for that service. And as the 155 megs were activated, we moved from 12 megs to 60 megas. Just to give you an idea of how saturated those links were before the activation of the undersea cables. And of course, had a very intense traffic at the IXP. So people from the south of Brazil installed their IXP in 2000. Optic Globe is worth mentioning that Optic Globe was very successful in putting together an IXP, and it was also a learning curve for us for the IXP model. FAPESP's IXP made it mandatory for everyone in the network to exchange information with everyone else, no exception. And of course, there were participants who wished they had more flexibility to interact with some, but not with everyone. So that's something we learned, and we applied that philosophy of giving that freedom to participants when we installed the new model in 2004. You can see that today people do whatever they wish, whatever they please. We do not make anybody have traffic with everybody else. So that's the freedom we wish to have for all participants. And then in 2002, we have people from Paraná and then people from Brasilia. Milton, just if I may, as a compliment, for those who have been for a long time following up on this, back in '99, if you look at the files, we have GTR number 9 in October '99, and we were already talking about route servers. Milton just said we only have one core builder, a 350, with 16 ports of 100 megabits. We already had scalability problems, so we were already using route servers. That's 20 years ago. Very good, Fred.
Point to the timeline here. In 2001, at the OptiGlobe exchange, that was the first root name server brought to Brazil. I think Fred will have something more eloquent to say than I do, but I'd like to honor the memory of our friend Fernando Crehi, who was the one who arranged with me to bring that first root name server and got it into the OptiGlobe exchange. No, sorry.
Our 4800 line was made of metal undersea cable, believe it or not. And then for the 9600, we needed to wait for somebody to release a second channel. We needed to wait for that space to be released for us. And our first router was a Cisco IGC. It had one high-speed port for 64K and one 100 bits. So very, very limited with 2 ports. Then here we can see the start of the IXP Metro project. Federico sent this email back in 2004. That's the starting point of the PTT Metro project, now called IXP or IX. Just to go back in history, I checked some data, emails we exchanged back in the day. Why did we have this project up and running, the PTT Metro? We had FAPESP's IX, which at the time was moving from its then address The foundation no longer wanted to have that working in-house, so they all moved to a different location, a different address, where we have the Equinix SP4 today, I think. And we already had optics up and running at OptiGlobe, and we had a very good traffic matrix in Sao Paulo. For you to participate, you need to have multiple connections to multiple internet exchanges. This was bad for everyone involved, and this is something that took a big fight for us to unify all those matrices. And Bill helped us a lot in that respect from the standpoint of the economic model, which would be the most fitting for the IXPs. The UNSP basically announced that in June the 30th, would shut down those who were at the Pio 11 Street, the former address, and then we started to discuss what to do, how we could address that issue. And this discussion happens in April, May 2004. The registration service was out of APASP. We had moved out of APASP in 2002, in March. Until then, we were a network within UNSP's AS, the 1251, which was a very welcoming home for us for many years, but we needed to leave at some point. And the first thing we looked for when we moved out was that we need to remain connected to UNSP's IX. The 21548 was emerged at that time. So the search for this new address was driven from the fact that we wanted to connect to UNSP's IX. That's just an aside to explain what the creation of IX in 2004 entailed at the time. And as Bill mentioned, we need, in any event, to remember our friend and colleague Fernando Krahen from OptiGlobe, and also Fernando Vega from the previous Metro Rede, Brazil Telecom, today Oi. Were it not for the two of them, PTT Metro would not be what it is today. Unlike today, in 2004, to be frank, there was no fiber in the city. If we did not have partners, there were no services, or that asset was not available. That's what I mean. And at the time, we found partners. Metro Ready was one of them, which helped us get connected to the Pan American Park with OptiGlobe. It was one across from the other, from the river here in Sao Paulo. And at the time, we only had the BR registration. It was only a project, a merging project, and we were close by, a couple of miles down the road. So we need to thank them. Fernando sadly died at a very young age, a very dear friend and colleague who had been with us from the very beginning. He was a student of Liani in the south, and he moved to São Paulo when commercial internet took off, and then Vega as well, two dear friends. And the project took off, as Milton said. It was announced on June the 3rd, and then we got it up and running on July the 2nd. So it took about a month for us to make it operational. The IXP became operational in about a month. So this is a diagram of the PTT Metro in São Paulo with the 4 different points. And in the same year, we also launched Rio and Brasilia with a partnership of RNP. And that project was guided by instructions provided by Bill, who is here with us. I had a chance to watch Bill's presentations about economic models concerning IXPs. So Bill, here with us today, made a presentation in which he mathematically proved that financially, if you had several IXPs in a big metropolis, that would come out as more expensive than if you had only one. So economically for the participants would be more viable. And that model led us or made us always keep in mind in our radar a single IXP matrix. So a word of thank you to Bill as well for his contributions, for that presentation he made way back in the day, and and several other conversations we had throughout time. And we understood that thoroughly, and we always thought that we needed to have a single IXP matrix. And we only managed to have that a decade later when Terra Market, after they had become something else, they changed the name. It slipped my mind. And then we finally managed to connect to .br, XBR. Verizon.
Just to add a point, it's extremely important that Bill is here, as I've mentioned before. This project was born in the CGI in a very short period of time. We had a model and an economic perspective that was not very appropriate. We were lucky to have met Bill before that, and in the end of April of 2004, we visited SIX in Seattle, the Seattle Traffic Exchange, and it was a co-op model of an IX that works till today there. There were advantages from the topological perspective because everyone is in the same building in Seattle. It is as if we have very similar to what happens in Campinas, where all the ISPs are on the same site. That really made the internet exchange model better, and Bill has helped us so much to have this perspective. And the PTT Metro model is different from any other model in the world, but it was built with a lot of knowledge and after a lot of conversations. And then we grew. Content started to get to us. Maybe you don't even remember what Yahoo was. It was a content provider that was very strong at some point, and they had very interesting content that also helped improving the attractiveness. In 2007, we also had the PTT of Salvador, 2006 Salvador, and we grew and grew. And Google, after we started PTT Metro in Fortaleza and in Londrina, Google joined the IX in Sao Paulo. Google played an important role because Google had and still has very attractive content. We kept growing, and in 2010, Global.com got to the IX in Sao Paulo. In the same year, we launched the sites of Campina Grande and Goiânia. And in 2010, we became a member of Euro IX. So this is when we started having a relationship with people in Europe, D6, M6. They have helped us a lot gathering those who manage IX pieces. Very interesting. The experiences we exchanged with them were very important so that we could have the operational experience that we have to date. This doesn't come from nowhere. We don't start from scratch. We exchange ideas. We want to collect experiences from others. As John said, this is an exchange of ideas. So what we learn there, we try to apply the best here. Other IXPs start to grow. Amazon joins in Sao Paulo. We also participated in the establishment of LACX, the Association of the IXP Operators in Latin America. Then in 2012, Netflix comes to Sao Paulo, Global to Rio, and we founded an association, actually a federation of the associations of IXPs. It's called IX Federation. Facebook, Microsoft also joining the IX of São Paulo, Google, and Amazon in Rio in 2013. We then launched the PTT of Lajeado, Maringá, São Carlos. This is part of our history. It's also important to show this chart that shows a change in profile. This happened in 2013. Blue is 2011, in red 2012, and in 2013 in yellow. The traffic that used to happen in the afternoon now became more prominent at night. This means that home internet had higher traffic volume than commercial internet. In 2013, we had this change in traffic profile. That's what happened in Brazil. On weekends, this happened too. There was a peak on the weekends. It grew from comparing to previous years. The traffic volume was usually Sunday night, and that's true to today. As of 2013, we no longer had our maintenance activities on weekends, thank God, because that was the only time we worked.
Thing to note about this traffic graph, when you look at the graph, the diurnal traffic graph of an internet exchange point, you always see this trough in the wee hours of the night, and then it climbs as people get to work and through the working day, and then the evening, and then people start to go to sleep again. But if you look at the trough, the higher that trough is above zero, there are very, very few people actually using the internet here at 5 in the morning. When you see the trough starting to grow, as you see it there, what that means is that there are people, more and more people, relying on this internet exchange who are in different time zones, other parts of the world. So what you're seeing there is that trough at 5 in the morning, 6 in the morning starts to rise. That's showing the exchange point here in Sao Paulo becoming more and more critical to traffic exchange in the rest of the world, people in the rest of the world deriving value from it.
Bem, e aí, vamos dizer assim,
Netflix expanded its operations and moved to Rio in 2014. It's interesting because they had announced in meetings that Akamai would no longer be part of IX, but in 2015 they came to São Paulo. They basically say one thing and do something else, but it was good. Netflix came to Porto Alegre, then PTT Metro Foz do Iguaçu was open. Akamai also went to IX in Rio, then Netflix in Fortaleza, and in 2018, São Luís, Maceió, and Teresina. This timeline explains our activity throughout the past years. What I can tell you is that this is the current scenario. Julio showed you that. 31 IXPs all over Brazil. We have 1/3 of the autonomous systems connected to IX. This means that 33% of the autonomous systems are connected to some IX. This is the distribution, obviously. São Paulo accounts for 50% of the total number of participants. They're heavily located in São Paulo, and the rest is distributed, as you can see on the chart. This is the list of the number of participants per city. 3,000, over 3,000. And if we combine the participation of autonomous system, there are several of them. They are part of many sites. So in total, 3,549. If we had unique autonomous system, we'll probably have 2,500. This is a chart that makes us very happy. It's a growing traffic. That's a good sign. It shows health. In blue, you see the total number. Red is São Paulo, and the total is in blue, and the other lines below are for each site. Ceará has grown significantly, as you can see. It seems to be the chosen one this time. ISPs have chosen to send their traffic from there, especially those companies located in the northeastern part of Brazil, and we hope that traffic will spread from there. And these are the services of IX.br. Looking Glass, RIS project, route views, the CMAT project. We have a booth outside. We are recruiting participants to be the guinea pigs of the new measurement system, volunteers. DNS root servers that were mentioned before. The number of the DNS root servers we have connected in IX.br. Maybe Frederico can tell us a little bit about that, about the structure we have on IX and what we plan to implement. We have 15 routes in Porto Alegre and São Paulo, in addition to those in São Paulo. Copies of DNS.br in 16 sites, and we are adding additional 12 until the end of the year. And next year, we will have authoritative servers with at least 3 letters of BR in each one of the IXs in Brazil. We have all letters in São Paulo, but that's not true for all sites. Together with the root servers, we have much more resilience in name resolution in root and also in BR, any problems with global connectivity. There was a presentation today from Katu-san of talking about M-roots. We'll probably have another one in São Paulo. Services are important. With these services, we aim to improve the quality of Brazilian internet. Tomorrow, I will talk about our plans for next year, and I hope that we can help autonomous systems to have better internet connection. I would like to take this opportunity to explain something to you. First, I would like to highlight that NIC.br's team, they are the executive branch of the steering committee of CGI. Although I am one of NIC's director, I'm also responsible for the executive secretariat of CGI that has many counselors, and not always the ideas that come up can be immediately implemented. We have some administrative bureaucratic processes in the way. Quoting, for example, quotations. So sometimes the process might take longer than you would wish for. Of course, the routine is clearly designed. We know how to do maintenance activities, deal with emergency situations. But sometimes it depends on the approval of CGI, the steering committee, that has representatives from all parts of society, 9 representatives from the government, and 9 representatives that is very democratic and transparent from bottom up. And these 21 counselors are involved with all the internet challenges in Brazil. They participate in the decisions. So sometimes meetings need to have this moment for exchanging ideas, explaining details, and these projects need to be better designed or show more figures to help us decide between choosing A or B. This is why these decisions take longer sometimes. And I'm saying that to justify the fact that not always the team is fully autonomous. Maybe 99% autonomous, but sometimes they need to get the blessing and approval of CGI. Milton and Fred, who work in the field, need to follow a few procedures. We are trying to make them as flexible as possible, and CGI counselors are, of course, understanding, but they don't want just to be a mere part of it, or they want to give ideas, they want to exchange ideas. So you might feel the process is slow, but that's because of these bureaucratic steps. As a secretary, I have this connection with counselors, trying to minimize this delay. We work together. I don't want to highlight individual people. I think it's important to say that the success of NIC.br is due to its team, because they play together. I'm one of the veterans, well, even because of my age. So I feel very pleased to see how this team works together. Many of you are in this room, and the success of NIC.br is the result of the spirit of serving, supporting, and building a better, larger internet to integrate Brazil as a whole. So, if we have a privileged position in many situations, one of the best domains with over 4 million domains, the largest IX, or maybe the second, depending how we measure that, all of that is the consequence of a joint effort of a team that we are very proud to say that people really work together. I wanted to highlight the good teamwork we've had in the past 30 years of .br, and in '98 when we had the first IXB in FAPESP. If that was successful, it's because there was union, effort, and joint work of this team. I would like to now turn over to Bill so that he can say how IX in Brazil is in comparison to other international IXs. I know that Bill is very experienced, so I would like to hear his opinions on how our IXs compare to other countries. How can we improve? What should we do?
So, since the first IX was built in 1992, I've been through this process of working with groups of people who wanted to build IXs more than 1,000 times. And, you know, there's a new IX somewhere in the world about every 10 days. IXs are the factories that produce internet bandwidth. Internet service providers carry that bandwidth from the IXs to where people want to consume it. So the internet exchange points are fundamentally central to the economy of the internet. There would be no communication without them in the current model. What I've found in 35 years in the technology industry is that there are a lot of smart people and there are a lot of hardworking people. But to be successful, you have to be both smart and hardworking. And the thing that's really distinguished the efforts here in Brazil is that there's a degree of intellectual rigor that has been applied to the process that's almost unique in the world. The effort that Frederico and his colleagues put in back in 2002, 2003, 2004 to understand what the best practices were and make really well-informed decisions, well-contemplated decisions about what the path should be. That's what laid the groundwork for success. And then the very hard work that you guys have put in diligently year after year is what has allowed you to scale to the size that you have, both the largest exchange, but also by country, the second most exchanges. There's no country in the world that has more internet exchanges except the United States. So Brazil has done something really remarkable there, and it's that combination of being very aware of what other people are doing and learning from what other people are doing, both their successes and their failures, and applying that analytical rigor to understand which of those techniques are worth adapting to your local economy, which of those things, you know, might work somewhere else for some other people in some other, you know, business environment, but wouldn't work here. Doing the sort of the necessary experimentation and then just rigorously turning the crank, going out and doing the work over and over and over, 33 times, 30 times, whatever the number is right now. I know there are a couple more in process, to bring the benefit of that to all communities within Brazil, not just the ones right here. I think a lot of countries get one exchange point up in the capital, and then they think they're done. And that leads to more economic disparity, more wealth for the wealthy people, and more hard work for the people who aren't wealthy. But I think one of the things about doing this in a not-for-profit context, the way that you guys have, is that you don't have to be driven just by profit margins and just focus all your attention on the places where the wealthiest people are. Instead, you can spread your effort and bring that benefit to people in every city. And you know, I don't see them slowing down. They seem to be continuing to turn that crank and bringing exchange points to more and more cities. If you could build a factory that produced a useful good for the low price that a new internet exchange point costs to set up, you'd do it. There's no reason not to keep doing this, to keep bringing more and more exchange points to smaller and smaller communities within Brazil, because eventually they won't be small. Eventually, this is part of the economic driving force that will make them larger and wealthier. So I think, you know, Brazil is kind of unique in having this carefully analyzed model and applying that model many, many times. And there are a lot of other countries out there that have experimented more broadly, but have had a lot of failures, right? You guys have not had a lot of failures, which is really important to an economy where every last bit matters. But at the same time, because they've spent so much time paying attention to how things work in other places, you still get the benefit of learning from everybody else's failures. So I have nothing but congratulations for Milton and Fernando and their team. This has been one of the world's greatest successes in internet engineering and the development of the internet economy.
Well, thank you. I'd like to give the word over to Demi. We're getting close to the end of the event. I'd like Demi to wrap up the day, and then we'll have some time for our beer fest. So I'll be brief because what's coming after this is very important. I think one of the things that is a milestone for the IXPs in Brazil, or PTTs, is this trend to decentralize things. As Bill just said, it's very easy to have a huge IXP in a very big economic center, and then everybody has to get there and not the other way around. So the effort to take content to less attractive IXPs shows that our main interest is not to make São Paulo's IXP increasingly bigger, but to make internet in Brazil larger and bigger, more encompassing. Obviously, Glaser has already mentioned this, has covered his thanks to the team that we have at NIC, but there is a continuous timeline. Milton was working with networks at the university, and then FAPESP. Fred developed the automatic software for registration and so on. It is a continuous effort, and that helped us get these good results, this continuity from the very beginning of the process. And the natural and sad part is that some of us have passed. Fernando Gomidi will have an award in their name, Wilson Gomidi award in their name. That's life. It's sad, but it's life. But the process remains. The process continues. And we see by the look of the people here, I can mention several who are here and who've been with us since the beginning as well. This continuity, once again, is what ensures the success of the project. So wish you all to continue living next year, that we can meet again next year. Thank you. Just one final comment. We have been talking about security and routing. If you'd like to know what we've been doing in relation to routing and security, be here on Thursday morning. And if you're interested in get your hands dirty, as it were, please sign up for a tutorial on Friday on RPKI. And I'll tell you more on Thursday. Be here, and let's have a beer.